Ladies, do you want to fulfill your potential, like to really be great, maximize who you are, get everything out of yourself so that you can, instead of looking back a year behind you and thinking, what did I really accomplish, that you can actually feel every day a sense of accomplishment? We have an amazing guest. Okay, you know her, Esti Hamilton. There's a time, she's coming back. It's by special request. Everybody loves her. We're going to have an amazing show, and you are not going to be the same after you watch this show. Stay tuned. I want to welcome Esti. This is Esti Hamilton, the one and only from London. She's a yummy. You saw her a couple of weeks ago. She's back. We got poured in with emails. Have her again. So here she is. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me back. Such a privilege and an honor. And I always have so much fun on here with you. So I'm so excited.
Yay. Okay, fine. So good. So here's the situation. We're talking about choosing greatness. Okay. Everybody wants to choose greatness. They're all here to choose greatness. Here's what I want to know from you. Number one, what is greatness? And number two, like, okay, I am so busy, Rebbetzin. I'm so crazed and like choosing greatness. That's for next year. That's for 10 years from now. I can't even think about that. So the first thing is, what is greatness?
Greatness is you being your own best self. And I think that many of us find it very hard to be our own best self because our mind is often very crowded with all our thoughts and our feelings when it comes to everything. Because by the time we're choosing our greatness, we're already usually in our 20s. So we've had 20 years, let's say, and that's very young to be choosing greatness. Lots of people wait till their 30s or 40s, but let's say you're quite advanced in maturity and you decide, I want to be awesome, I want to be great, but you've already had about 20 years of, deep, subconscious messages coming through to your mind all the time in regards to literally everything in your life. So how you view the world, how you view other people, how you view yourself, how you view all your talents and your abilities. So you already have quite a distorted, non-subjective view of yourself and of your own potential for greatness. So if you've had amazing parents, amazing family, amazing teachers, if you've had a charmed life for 20 years, choosing greatness will be really, really easy because it's okay. But if you haven't had a charmed life, like most of us, and if you've been stuck in many different places, then choosing greatness is going to be difficult because just at the beginning, it will feel a little bit like, but I don't know who I am. I don't know what my greatness is. I don't know what is my potential. I don't know how to get rid of the critical voice in my head. I don't know how to stop the negative talk that I have about myself. Like somebody gives you a compliment and you think it for a second, you think that's the way they see me. Gosh, I don't see myself like that. Do you really see me that way? Somebody says to you, wow, you're so intuitive. And you're like, really? I'm intuitive? I don't know if I'm intuitive. Am I really? You see me as that person? Sometimes people will tell you something about yourself and you really find it hard to believe them because you just have never seen yourself in that view at all. So I think choosing greatness is awesome. And just by the idea of you wanting to be great is great. But we have even a stumbling block right there because how do I know what my greatness is and how do I know which critical voices to listen to because they're telling me what I'm doing wrong and which ones to listen to because they are not to listen to because they're just my teacher's voice or my aunt's voice or my mother's voice or my sister's voice or my friend's voice, but they're not really a true reflection of who I am.
Wow, we're already getting flooded with questions, but hold on, just wait a second. So, okay, so you're going to tell us how to choose greatness. Like by the end of this show, we want people to be able to walk out of here and be able to make that choice.
Awesome. Okay, fine. So first of all, we have to just understand that all human beings are incredibly resistant to change. And this is because on the most basic level, we are all programmed for survival. Survival means our brain is not looking for us to be our greatest self. Our brain is looking for us to live the longest, to survive. It's like it's almost pre-programmed in our brain, which means anything that you've been doing for the last 20 years, your brain will be very happy for you to do. Anything you want to change, any action, any thought, anything at all, your brain will be terrified that you're doing something that's different that might not help you survive, and it will resist it. So let's say you've been waking up every day at 7 a.m. and you decide from now on, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. because I've read a book that says that if you have an extra hour in the morning, you have an extra million hours during the year and you can achieve so much more. And because I want to choose greatness, therefore I need that extra hour. So you'll go, great. And your alarm will go at 6 a.m. the next morning and you'll wake up. And then the second morning you'll wake up. And then the third morning, your brain will say, go and just sleep a bit more. You know, you went to bed really late. You can't really afford this extra hour. You can do it tomorrow. And it will convince you very reasonably to sleep in that extra hour to 7. You don't need to wake up at 6. And then it'll be a week later before you realize that you actually had told yourself you're going to wake up at 6. And now you're back to waking up at 7.
Right.
And this, by the way, is a cycle that happens everywhere. So let's say you're the type of person that always has like a cup of tea and a piece of cake for breakfast. Let's say you're that person. I'm not saying it's me, but I'm just saying,
okay.
Let's say you're that person. Because it's the easiest food. It gives you instant energy. It makes you happy. And it takes you 3 minutes and you don't have to think about it. And then you start becoming more health conscious and you realize, actually, that's probably the worst way to start my day. Not good for my digestive system, not good for my weight loss plan. So you're like, from now on, I'm going to have strawberries and blueberries for breakfast, right? Excellent. So you go and buy them and they're in your fridge waiting for you. And Monday morning, you do it. Tuesday morning, you do it. Wednesday morning, you're like, I'm just so tired. I really need that hit of sugar. I'll just have it today. And then by Sunday, you realize, hang on a second, I really promised myself I'd do the fruit thing for breakfast in the morning, but your body is very resistant to change. So if it's so resistant to change on such a basic level, like eating, exercising, whatever, it will be even more resistant to change in anything more complex, like changing our thought patterns. So changing our negative thought patterns.
This is going to get better, right? Because you're making me like this sounds like I'm Kilimanjaro.
Forget it. You can't choose greatness. Everyone just go back to bed. No,
but you're going to tell us a way around this, right? The tunnel through this big mountain that you're talking about. Okay,
yes. So I just wanted you to know that actually change is incredibly difficult. And therefore, if you have tried it a million times before because you've done a New Year's resolution and it hasn't worked, don't think I'm just a terrible person. Everybody else can change except for me. And if there's something wrong with me, don't think that. This is true about everyone. Everyone across all religions, across all creeds, across men and women, we are all the same in this matter. It's just incredibly, incredibly difficult.
So this is the human condition, and you're going to tell us a way around it. Okay, good.
Yes.
We're just going to take one question and then come back because I want to talk about the, you were talking about having support around you, which was so awesome. But okay, let's just go with the one question. Go ahead.
Right, well, somebody on Instagram is asking in terms of changing just life. There's so many things that we have to change in. So how does somebody sit there and figure out what is the most important thing that they need to work on versus something easy?
Yeah.
Okay. The most important thing that you should work on is something that you'll find the easiest to be consistent with. Because consistency is really the key for any change. So consistent changes will make the biggest impact for you. So if you say, I'm going to, from now on, I haven't gone to the gym for 20 years, but from now on, I'm going to go to the gym every morning from 6 to 7. So I'm already laughing at you because it's already not. Okay? I already think that that's a big joke. And you're like, no, but that will create the biggest change. I know that will create that's not really, but if you say to me, listen, I usually drink 3 cups of coffee a day. I'm going to, from now on, drink 2 cups of coffee a day. And when instead of having my coffee in the middle of the day, like I usually have, I'll change it to a different hot drink because I usually have a hot drink. And so habits are very hard to change. So I have a coffee in the morning, a coffee in the evening, and in the middle of the day, instead of a third coffee, I'll have a herbal tea, my favorite herbal tea, and I'll buy it online and I'll have it right next to me. So I will say to you, that is a really good way that you can really manage. That's a manageable thing that you can do consistently because the key to change, they say that unless you've done something for 90 days in a row, it's not yet a habit. And you want to create good habits. So you want to do something the most consistently that you can possibly do it. So let's say in a religious thing, somebody says, I never pray. From now on, I'm going to pray the whole morning prayer every single morning. So already I'm saying to them, that won't asked. No, Will, I did it yesterday morning. I'm so proud of myself. I say to them, yeah, but in 2 days' time, it's not going to happen. I said, but probably more manageable is that you can say a Perek Tehillim, a psalm every day, a short one, and make sure that you have it photocopied, you have it on you, and you could probably consistently do that. So I would say that's why, take an area that you want to do something big in and try and change one habit in that area. So let's say you want to be more healthy. So instead of saying, and I'm going to do this and this and this day, I'm going to start by drinking more water. Every day, I'm just going to make sure that I count that I have 10 cups of water. And I'm not going to change what I eat for breakfast, lunch, and supper. And I'm not going to take out all the sugar and all the wheat and all the gluten. I'm not going to do all of that. I'm going to start by doing one small thing that I can do consistently. That's what I would say.
Fabulous. Okay. Awesome. Okay. They're going thumbs up. Okay.
Right, but they're asking, but then how do you know that you're not, especially when it comes to, not necessarily when it comes to diet or exercise, because that's a physical thing. And in our physical world, we sometimes tend to strive harder for what we want, our end result. But how do you know if someone's trying to change something in their spiritual world, if they're picking the smallest things because it's the easiest things, and then they're just copping out almost. They're not taking ever those big leaps because they're just like, oh, I'm patting myself on the back. I did that. I'm great. I'm amazing. And they're not going much further.
This is something me and Leah are going to talk about in about 5 minutes, and it's about placing awareness on it. So maybe, Leah, do you want me to answer it now, or should we answer it?
Let's wait. Yeah,
let's wait, because I want number 2, which is about the support systems. Okay, so go ahead.
So I also want everybody to know that because change is so hard for human beings, they actually don't like it when the people around them change either. And the reason is because if the people around you change, it makes you really uncomfortable about the lack of change within you. So this, you'll see a lot of times people ridicule. So let's say somebody doesn't drink. They're like, oh, what does one drink really matter? You can drink, it doesn't matter. Or if you're with, fat people that smoke and then you decide to stop smoking. So all your smoking friends will tell you, oh, you're being ridiculous. They won't be very supportive of you. And it's quite shocking. In fact, I recently read an article about an Australian actress called Rebel Wilson, who lost a lot of weight during coronavirus, maybe 100 pounds. And I saw her being interviewed, and she was saying how her team did not support her in her want to change her weight, even though she was very overweight. They said to her, no, this is a good character for you as an actress. And if you lose all this weight, you won't be able to, you won't be able to get in as many roles in filmmaking. And we're talking about her team who are supposed to love her. And we all know that being very obese is bad for your heart health. It's bad for your general health. It's not good for longevity of life. So if you're really somebody's friend, you'll want them to live a long and healthy life. And she said, my team around me were very unsupportive of me losing weight that I desperately needed to lose. And I just thought what a fascinating insight that was, because I know that if I change, people around me feel obligated to change, but they find it too difficult. So instead, they will make fun of the change you make. And we see this often in religious things. So let's say you're out in a restaurant with your friends, and you decide you want to wash your hands before you eat bread, or you decide you want to bench, you want to say the prayer after you've eaten bread, because you wanted to take something on, and this is something meaningful to you. Your friends might make backhanded compliments to you, like, oh my gosh, look at her, she's becoming so religious, or like, you're from now on my religious friend, or they will make some disparaging, maybe sarcastic, or a backhanded way of making you uncomfortable with your growth in order to make sure that they're comfortable with their lack of growth. So just, you should know, not only are your own self resistant to change, but the people around you will not appreciate your changing either.
Yeah, and that's wow. The thing that's so potent about that is that us as individuals who are listening to what she's saying, we need to be more conscious of our sabotaging other people. It's very, very sad, but it's really true. I know that feeling of like, oh well, if they're doing it, I should. That I totally get it. How do you suggest the onlookers be more supportive when it's so hard?
again, that's going to be our next point about awareness. It all comes to awareness.
Okay, we can go there.
But I will say that any person who wants to really make a change in something, they have to find their people. Okay, so let's say in a very extreme way, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous are. That's what Overeaters Anonymous are. Why do all these people need to go to support groups? Don't all the people around them love them and want to support them? No, they need to be around people who are doing exactly what they're doing. So I think that, let's say if somebody is choosing to become more religious, moving into an area or community that's going to be as religious as them is going to be much more supportive than staying where they have always stayed and then doing everything differently from everybody else, because they won't feel that they're getting the support that they need in that change.
Yeah, and I just want to take a time out, because if you can tell where all this material is coming in, I mean, there's a gorgeous, solid gold, and but Esti Hamilton didn't come up with it, you know what I mean? Well, a lot of stuff fell from the tree or whatever, but I think it's very crucial at this point. You had said, should I start with the resources? I said, do it somewhere in the middle, just so that we can appreciate that this is a Musar tradition for 400 years, 500 years, something like that.
There's an amazing book written by Ramachal, the Ramosha Chaim Luzzatto, 300 years ago, and it's called Mesilat Yesharim, the path of the just. I think that's how they translate it in English. And I'm currently giving a course on this on Torah Anytime. I think we're up to class 39 or something, so you can catch up. And this book, this Sefer, actually, I've got it right here. This is the art scroll version of it. This is the mini one. And what it is a book all about how to choose greatness. And it's like a 11, 12-step program of how to achieve greatness. And so all these ideas that I'm bringing to you today are not my original ideas. I just give it my own original allegories, mishalim, all mine. So the Ramchal doesn't talk about perhaps all the things that I am, but the basic principles are all written really in this book by hundreds of years ago, and it's amazing how when we learn through it, how relevant it is to our own life today. And so that's really what I'm basing all my material on. And
the thing that's so gorgeous about what the Rebbetzin is doing is that it's that the sefer that she lifted up is very deep and very heavy and very valuable. And if you can find a Rebbetzin or somebody to go through it with you, it's mind blowing. Like just every sentence is gorgeous. I think the Vilna Gaon said that there's a duplicate word in the entire sefer. It's all so beautifully done. Yeah. But what the Rebetzin's doing and what she does on her Torah Anytime class is she brings it down to like our level so that we can relate to it and we can understand it. And she gives it over in a gorgeous way that we can actually use in a very practical sense. So it's highly, highly recommended. Okay. And I hope I didn't take anything away from how awesome you are by saying that, but I'm
so happy I'm just translating the Ramchal. So what the Ramchal does is he says that the first step to greatness, or the first trait that we have to work on within ourselves, is awareness. And he says in his book that we should be reassured that just the simple act of awareness takes us to a whole new level, which I find so amazing, because you always think, I need to do a big action. I need to do some kind of action. I need to do a mitzvah. I need to change my whole life. I need to become a whole new person to achieve this greatness. And then you read the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim, you read his words, and he says, the first thing you have to do is become aware. And you're like, aware of what? And then he spends a whole few chapters talking about awareness. And then he says, and just by reading these words, you have already, lifted yourself up by a whole new level. And I think what he's referring to, and what we know to be true, is that most of our lives are lived through our subconscious mind. And that means what he's saying is that we should be asking ourselves, what messages are we receiving through what we hear and what we see? They say diet is not only what you eat, it's also what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, your friends that are around you. That means your mind also is on a kind of diet. Most of us are on a social media diet, but if we were more discerning, if perhaps we were more discerning, we would know that we are deeply affected by our subconscious mind, and that we live our life through our subconscious mind. Like 90% of what we do or the way we respond to situations is because of what's happening on a subconscious level. And therefore, he says that awareness is so key, because if we place awareness on what we do, we will suddenly see what we're actually doing. I'll give you an example. I'll give you first a silly example and then a deep one. So I know a person who speaks like this all the time.
Yikes.
They speak like this every day, all the time. And it's just unbelievable. It's like shocking when you see it, and I didn't really know her so well. She was a teacher of a son of mine. And I asked him the first week of school, like, how is school going? He was in primary school at the time. He was maybe 9 or 10. And he says, yes, I have a teacher. She shouts all the time, but don't worry, mommy, that's just her voice. Now, it's very interesting that what she probably doesn't realize is that she's shouting. She doesn't realize that means we are doing a lot of things in our life that we don't realize that we're doing at all. They actually call this, there's actually a term for it. I don't know if you've ever driven a car. Let's say I do rota, that means I do a school run every single day for my kids. And I can do it literally in my sleep. And sometimes I come back home and I don't remember the journey coming from school back home. I don't even remember taking that journey. And they call it highway hypnosis. There's actually a psychological term, it's called highway hypnosis, that if you do a journey more than 100 or 200 times, you can do it so subconsciously that you don't even remember it. So I drive into my driveway, I've done a 7-minute journey, I don't remember it at all, right? Now, we live almost our entire life like this, highway hypnosis. I wake up in the morning, I get dressed, I go downstairs, I have my coffee, I drive to work. I can already tell you the million different things that I'm doing, right? And the way we respond or react to situations is going to be exactly the same as we've always done it until we place awareness. And suddenly I realize, hey, in the morning, I'm really grumpy. What I'm going to do now that I've placed awareness on that, when I'm in the bathroom in the morning, I'm going to smile into the mirror for at least 20 seconds. And I'm going to just smile until when I leave the bathroom, I'm smiling. Because once I've placed awareness on the fact that I walk around like this the whole morning, even after I've had my coffee for at least the first 2 hours, and that probably is not so pleasant for my husband and my children, what I'm going to do is just by placing awareness, I suddenly realized something that could change my whole life. It could be life changing. I could change my entire life because I've placed awareness. And then I've decided to do something really, really, really small that will change my whole life. My kids might smile back at me. They might have a better day. My husband might have a better day. But I didn't even know that I was giving everybody a grumpy face for the first hour of the morning. I didn't know. Why? Because I didn't ever place awareness on that. Meaning our whole life, there are many tiny things exactly in that way that we don't place awareness of. But I wanted to give you a little bit of perhaps a more religious or inspirational idea about feeding subconscious messages to ourselves and how important it is and how key it is. I'm going to give you two different. So the first one is, I don't know if you remember, everybody remembers. So remember in 2020, with March 2020, when coronavirus hit the whole world and we were in lockdown. And I was in lockdown with a house full of very young children. So not everybody was in my situation, but a lot of people were in my situation. And it was pretty exhausting, I would say, to be the mother and the cook and the cleaner and the teacher and the everything. And this was like constantly all the time without my normal support, without them going to school, angry, grumpy children, I would say, who also bored and also a bit scared. And the whole situation, nobody's ever been in a pandemic before, was really pretty intense. And by week 8 or 9, so that means about a month after Pesach, I was feeling really, really depressed. But you know what? I had a lot to be grateful for. I was healthy. My children were healthy. None of us were sick. I lived in a house with a garden, so we had lots of space. I could order my food to come to my front door, so nobody was hungry. I could give you a list of about 20 things that I could really easily be grateful for. And in fact, I wasn't grateful for any of them because I had enough, like probably every young mother in the world. It was enough. Okay, it's enough now. Okay. And then I decided, what can I add to my day that will help change my mindset? Because it's not good enough I don't want to be this person that's bitter and angry and grumpy. And it was feeding into all my children's vibes. So even though I wasn't yelling and screaming, they could tell mommy was like grumpy all the time. And then everybody was grumpy. You know how it works. It's like top down. Everything happens top down. Anyways, so I decided to start saying a prayer called Nishmat Kol Chai. Nishmat, it's actually it's about 4 or 5 paragraphs long, and it's all about gratitude. And I decided what I was lacking was a deep feeling of gratitude. That's what I was really lacking in those moments. Even though I could list you all the things I could be grateful for, I was lacking gratitude. So I decided is that even though we say this prayer really once a week on Shabbos, I was going to say it once a day for 40 days. There is a whole understanding that one can do that. You can take it on. It takes about 5 minutes to say. And I decided I was going to add that to my day. Why? I didn't need more to add to my day. I promised that I was busy from the moment I woke up till the moment I was in bed sleeping. It wasn't that I needed, it's that I recognized that what I needed to do in that moment was send my mind a subconscious message of what was really important to me. So I started to say, and I started to say on day 1, I was equally as grumpy, and day 2 and day 3, I was equally as grumpy. By day 20, I felt already a feeling of being uplifted and grateful. And why? Because I was feeding my mind a subconscious message that what was my subconscious message? Really, I'm incredibly grateful for my life, for my family, for everything around me. And in fact, those 40 days became 2 years because I'm still doing it now. And one of the reasons I'm still doing it is because what I feel from that prayer is something that it gives me more than anything else, because that creates a change within me, a soul change, if you like. And that's the person who I want to be. So if we're saying we want to choose greatness, we have to decide what thoughts and what actions we want to choose in order to be great. And one of those thoughts is the gratitude in our own life. Yes, go on.
So like game changing. And there's one thing I wanted to ask you about, because you had said in the pre-show interview, but we've got questions. I just want to take 1 or 2 questions because I don't want to ignore everybody. So hold on 1 second and we'll come right back to that thought.
Right. Well, lots, by the way, tons of hearts on Instagram. People are really, really connecting with this. I think it's very similar to then, right, Rebbetzin Esti, it's similar to affirmations, like people saying positive affirmations every morning.
Well, no, I want to.
I don't know. There is some kind of, go on.
Well, tell the story that you said to me in pre-show interview about how if you want to say Lashon Hara, okay, I'm never saying Lashon Hara again, and what the antidote is. So it's not positive affirmation.
So I think there is some kind of toxic positivity about, like, we're always so happy all the time and we're so grateful all the time and we can never ever be sad or depressed for a moment, because then we're just so terrible. And there is a toxic positivity that I think affirmations sometimes lead us to that place, because it's not based on I think anything inspirational. It's just like left on its own. So what I was saying about placing awareness, one of the things I was placing awareness on is something negative, which is what I think Leah's trying to bring up here, which is that we don't want to be gossip mongers. We don't want to be the people who are speaking Lashon Hara all the time. We want to be the people who are giving the benefit of the doubt. We want to be the people who keep our mouths shut about other people's business, that we don't really understand what's going on. We never really know the whole story. And yet, how do we work on not speaking Lashon Hara, not gossiping? So, you make all these things today, I'm not going to gossip, or you hear a terrible story about how somebody gossiped and it was a lie and it changed their life or lost them their job. And you're like, I just don't want to be that person. And then what happens is that doesn't ever really work. So the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation came out with a book that says, like, you can read a page a day about like slander, about bad speech. 1 page a day to go through the halachas, and you can actually read 1 page a day for the whole entire year. So we decided to take this on as a family, and every night at supper time, we open the book and we read a page. Now, I have lots of also young children, lots of teenagers. There's lots of noise around my supper table. Not all the young children really understand what's being said. Sometimes the young children are the ones that want to read the page and they don't really know how to read so well. So it's very laborious and long. And you can imagine it's not the perfect scene, but the opposite to the perfect scene. And we still try and do it every day, right? And you think to yourself, like, what is that going to really achieve? What's it really going to achieve? I read 1 page a day. What's it really going to achieve? And the answer is that there is a subliminal message here. What's the subliminal message that we say that the whole family understand every single day at supper time? We as a family don't speak badly about other people. That's what they understand. Even if they don't understand the exact halacha that we're speaking about at that moment, even if they don't get exactly what the Chofetz Chaim is trying to, the subtleties, sometimes it's like subtleties of Lashon Hara, like you can speak this, but not that. The adults around the table might understand it. But what are we actually understanding in that moment? That we as a family, we're placing awareness on our speech. That's what we're doing. We're becoming more aware of what our speech is and how it's harmful to other people. And just by doing that changes the whole atmosphere in the whole house. It can change your life. Just
the game changer that when you explain this to me, the game changer was the fact that you can make all of the New Year's resolutions and do all the affirmations, like you're saying, that you want. What's going to make a difference is sitting down, is making the commitment. Okay, I'm going to, for 2 minutes every night before I go to bed, I'm going to, let's say it's Lashon Hara, not speaking gossip. I'm going to read a book on not speaking gossip. That a week, like if you promise I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara for the next week, you're going to, after 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, that's going to be gone. But if you say, I'm going to read a book every day for 2 minutes, then a week later, you're not saying the gossip that that's the way to change. And that's what the Mesilas Yesharim is saying, is that there's a way to grow and change is by making a commitment that actually you can keep, and based on awareness.
But even more than that, the commitment actually is not to do the thing. The commitment is to place awareness on the thing you want to do. Why is there difference? I'm not committing never to speak Lashon Hara. That's not what my commitment is. My commitment is that I'm going to read about the effects of bad speech on other people and on myself. I'm just going to read about it. I'm not promising to be the biggest, righteous, most holy woman in the whole world. I'm just going to read about it. That means it's about placing awareness. The first trait to greatness is always about placing awareness on our life. And I want to say something else within this. I was talking about that we all have a critical voice in our head. And I read somewhere that nobody has ever been criticized into greatness. Nobody has ever been criticized into greatness. And to the extent that we continue to criticize, I'm such a terrible person and I always speak Lashon Hara, I'm such a bad person and I never can do this right, or I'm always opening my big mouth, I can never shut my mouth, I'm always right. So whenever we say that to ourselves, that will create zero change. There will be no actual change in your life, because just like, let's say my children do something wrong and I would say, God forbid, I'd say to my children, you're such an idiot, why don't you know how to do this? That won't make them better. Let's say they're trying to do a math equation. I'm not going to say, you're such an idiot, you never understand math, because I cannot criticize them into greatness. What I will say to them is, the math sum that you did before, you did that so great. So we just have to apply the same rules from that math question to this math question, and then just add one little thing and you'll totally be fine. You've got it. That means whenever we want to encourage our child to do something, we tell them already they've got it. You've already got it. You just need to make one little tweak. You're already there. So what I'm saying is that when we place awareness, what I really am talking about is being curious about why I behave a certain way. So let's say I say to myself, I'm going to look around and I'm going to place awareness about myself. And then I realize that I shout a lot, or I realize that I tell myself what a terrible mother I am, whereas I realize I don't pray very much during the day. I realize that I'm not a very good daughter-in-law, mother, wife, sister. I don't, just whatever critical voice you have in your head. Be curious about it. Wow, that's so interesting. Why do I keep telling myself that I'm such a disorganized mess? That has never managed to make me an organized person. That actual criticism has never actually achieved its purpose. Why do I always tell myself I'm such a disorganized mess? Why would I do that? That's so interesting. I'm going to place awareness in as what I do. Oh, I see. I leave all the clearing up till the end of the day, and then I'm too exhausted to do it. And then in the morning, I wake up and I say, I'm such a disorganized mess. Why don't I change the timing and decide I'm going to do my clear up in the middle of the day, or maybe the first hour of the day when I have the most energy. And then I can just not call myself a disorganized mess. So by placing awareness, that means instead of criticizing myself, I'm such a disorganized mess, I'm going to place awareness as why? Why is my behavior this way if I don't want it to be this way? Why is my house always a mess if I don't want it to be this way? oh, it's because I haven't set aside enough time when I'm not tired. Because at 9 o'clock at night, I'm not going to start hoovering the house and washing the dishes. Really, I'm not. So every night I promise myself I'll do it. I don't do it. I fail. I'm upset with myself. And then I end up being a disorganized mess. And do you understand? Placing awareness without a critical voice actually will help you achieve so much more, and will get you in touch with how to change the things that you don't like about yourself in your life.
It's fantastic. This is the most important point in the whole show. Everybody take note of that awareness and start examining your behaviors that you want to change. It's very powerful rather than forcing into something, and doing an affirmation. It's fabulous. Okay. Sorry. We've got a lot.
Use what you have on Instagram said yes with an exclamation point. Awareness of the victim's consequences should make people think twice before gossiping.
Wow.
So definitely, I guess, even awareness of other people. Somebody was asking also on Facebook, I just want to put out that question was from before. What if your husband, right, you said that you're supposed to pick something to change and become aware of it, and then you'll be able to start working on it. So she says, what if your husband isn't supportive of what you choose to change? Does that mean that you should change something else?
Wow. Okay. That has got to do a lot with everybody's own shalom bias. I think that in that question, there's many different things going on. The first thing is that it's interesting to me that the husband and wife has such a relationship that the wife is saying, I want to grow in this area, and the husband saying, I want you to grow in a different area. Perhaps it's more realistic to say that a spouse suffers from our flaws. So I have a certain flaw. So I'm not perfect. My husband's not perfect. But let's say our husbands are not perfect and they're always late. And therefore you suffer from their lateness by burning dinner, by not having enough time together, by being tired by the time they get home, whatever. And then your husband comes home and says, you know what, honey, I've decided I'm going to change. And the way I'm going to change is I'm going to, and then he makes like a random comment, like from now on, I'm going to make sure that all my, my books are by the front door before I leave the house. So I'm not scrambling around the house to find my work to bring to the office. And you're like, that's what you're going to change? What I need you to change is I need you to look at your clock and I need you to be home by 6 o'clock. That's what I need you to change. But sometimes what happens in a husband-wife dynamic is because nobody's perfect. And in a marriage, you live together and you see each other's flaws so clearly. Sometimes our spouse is suffering from something that we are flawed in. So let's say you are a disorganized mess and your house always looks messy. And then you say to your husband, I'm going to work on not speaking Lashon Hara. And he's like, do you mind working on washing the dishes instead? Because that's what we really need. So what happens is that we have to be very careful that when we are in our righteous mode and we're going to take on something and we're going to be all like wonderful and righteous, that really it's our responsibility to take on the things that are perhaps hurting the people that we love the most. And we should bring awareness to that. So let's say if I said to my husband, I want to work on davening. And let's say my husband said to me, well, can you just work on like bringing Shabbos in on time? Because it bothers me so much that like you always like 5 minutes late or whatever it is. If we were mature enough and had enough self-esteem and, were strong enough within ourselves, we would be curious about that statement. And we'd say, wow, I don't realize that me taking in Shabbos by the skin of my teeth every single weekend is really bothering my husband. I wonder why I do that and in what way I can check. Maybe I should be doing my cooking on Thursday nights, not on Friday mornings, or I should get the cleaner to come Friday morning instead of Friday afternoon. Maybe I should do my shopping 2 days earlier, because we being righteous is also not only being Adam La'Mokim between me and God, but also being Adam La'Chavera between, me and my fellow man, and your fellow man is going to be, your spouse and the people that live in your house primarily first. They say, tzedakah begins at home and chesed begins at home. And therefore, if I say, I want to focus on prayer because I really want to get closer to God, and my husband's like, well, can you focus on bringing in Shabbos on time? So then if you really could be strong enough to absorb that without feeling hurt, which is very hard to do for most people, you can then say to yourself, you know what, I do want to change and I do want to start davening or praying more, but this is really important to my husband, and what's important to him is important to me, and perhaps I should place awareness about my timekeeping on a Friday so that I can start doing that. Maybe that is something that I should be working on first.
Right. And Leah, all that's going through my mind is she sounds like an amazing wife, but all that's going through my mind is if my husband would say that to me, I'd be like, yeah, I could totally take in Shabbos on time if you would just do something, right? Mm-hmm. If you would help and wash the dishes and you could make the kugel and you could bait the kids. And right. So, I mean, it's nice in theory, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like if my husband said that to me, I think it takes a very high level for a wife to be able to be like, but oh, also, honey.
Wait, there's a time, ladies. Oh, there's one thing though, and that is that in this growth process, you're better. Things much happens when it's sneeze, when it's modest and quiet, rather than making this big pronouncement. I'm going on a diet starting on Monday, and then Monday morning there's still some leftover cheesecake or whatever. Putting yourself in a situation where your husband's your police or those around you are your police, not so much. So I think there has to be a lot of thought put into. We want to change. We want to grow. We want to bring out our own greatness. How are we going to do it in a way that isn't going to sabotage ourselves? And I think if you come in, blabbing about your big pronouncements, and some people think, if you make a commitment now, you're embarrassed not to do it. So that's an extra support of you doing it. I don't know. Personally, it's challenging for me. Maybe other people, like you're saying, are on a mature level. But when it comes to what your husband and what you want to grow, it could be that, come Rosh Hashanah, you're talking about what you want to work on. Asking him what you should work on is also a dangerous territory because he's going to 90% chance pick something different than what you are. And as what the Rebbetzin saying is, if you are mature enough and self-esteem enough, good luck. If you're that way, write in, maybe you can come and teach the show because hello. But anyway, you have to have a understanding of what's going to, making him your police and are you sure you want to eat that? I mean, where's my boxing glove? Yeah. So that, I'm not sure as a general rule, when you're growing, what does Rebbetzin think?
I think that in most marriages, we do speak to our spouse about things that we want to achieve and things that, and maybe they're the only person that we speak to about it. So even if it's not a big pronouncement, maybe, in the quiet of the night, when you get to finally speak to your husband, you say, I went to this really amazing shir and it was really inspirational and inspired me to start davening more. And I really want to try and get, try to do that in my life. So, I think that in those kind of conversations, and not as a big pronouncement of now I'm going to change, but as just like a small, what do you think? Sometimes husbands turn around and tell their wives,
something's happening with the. Wait, you're fading out or something.
No, she's coming in like
It's never a good idea. So when you're listening to this, never tell your husband
Wait, hold on. You were totally on Mars.
No, it's my internet.
Yeah, your internet's having weird things. Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you again. So you said what you're talking to your husband and it's late, and everybody has to know their own husband. If you know that you're going to pronounce something and he's going to start either criticizing you or putting you down, whatever. Don't go there. Just work on it for yourself. But if you have, if you can use that as a support system, and that might change over time as you're being more loving and giving, as you watch the ladies talk show and you read Marriage Secrets. Hold on, I have to do my little plug. This is 220 Torah sources on Shalom Bayis. As you become the bigger receiver in your home, it could be that you can get that from your husband. If you're in a place where that's going to cause conflict, or he's going to sabotage you, or he's going to say something that makes you, not want to do it, you have to. Everyone has to judge for herself. Okay,
and also, I know. Oh my God! This is such a powerful area. I think.
Okay.
I have a question personally for myself. So I'm one of those people who, Rebbetzin Esti, who when I hear something, I want to take it on. And I'm like, oh, I can do it. And I take it on big and I sort of go extreme like that. And many times when I hear people talk, and I've actually had a few people now asking, like, which nishmas does she say and how does she say it? And so I see people are like that also, like they hear something, they get inspired and they want to do it. But at the same token, then I'll take on something. Like, for example, my friend said to daven nates, which is sometimes at 5:30 in the morning. Now, I nurse and I'm up in the middle of the night and then I'm up late at night because I'm working. And so sometimes getting up at 5:30 is beyond impossible, but I do it because I do something and I do it big. And then I'm suffering because I'm cranky and angry and I'm not a happy person. And sometimes I'm like, how do I know when maybe it's not the right, like when does somebody know it's just they're doing the right thing or they're really doing something that's just not for them at that moment and they really need to pick something really, really small, like just smiling, like you said, smiling in the morning. That could be a really big thing for somebody. How do you know?
Oh, this is such a huge question because first of all, it's a kind of like coaching question that you ask, because that question really presupposes that I know anything about your life, which I don't. I think that people like to take on things. I think there's some kinds of personalities that always like new things and gets bored very easily. So they're like, oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like something I can do. That sounds like so. I think also some people cut and paste from other people's lives. So they hear a story and they're like,
yes.
Right. And so
people are hearting that. Yes.
Yes.
Especially Rebbetzin Esti with social media where you want to do what the influencers are doing or, they're doing Nishmat, they're doing Tehillim, people want to do it.
So I think that sometimes that's a good thing because we can influence somebody to do something good. But the truth is that when you grow when you take on somebody else's growth ladder, because you think it will help you grow, because it's their growth ladder, not yours, it won't take you anyway where you want to go. That means if you are not holding where they're holding, so then I'll give you an example. So I've got an older son who, when he makes brachas over food, he closes his eyes and his shokels and he says, Baruch Atah, he's really, really concentrates on saying this blessing on this apple. Okay. And I have a 7-year-old son who idolizes his big brother. And recently he took an apple and he was closing his eyes and he was moving his head and he was saying, Baruch Atah. And it was the sweetest thing. But my teenage son turned around to him and said, it's no point doing that if you don't know what you're doing. Now, I understood what my teenage son was saying. Well, my teenage son was saying, why do I make a bracha very slowly and loudly and clearly and close my eyes? Because I'm focusing on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm focusing on God, on gratitude, on the oneness of Hashem. I'm taking all my kavanah, all my intention, and I'm focusing it on this moment. And therefore, it will lift me up. So when I eat this apple, this is now a holy endeavor. Okay, my 7-year-old doesn't have any of these thoughts. None of the thoughts about how, Yichud Hashem and God's oneness and how God created the world and this apple's in my hand only because God wanted it to be and how grateful I am and how God gives me everything. He's not thinking about that. He's just closing his eyes and chuckling his head because he saw his big brother do it and he thinks he's supposed to be doing that. So therefore, obviously, my 7-year-old son is not going to grow in the area of gratitude and Yichud Hashem and of relationship with God. He's not going to do that because he's just closing his eyes and chuckling. So I understand what my 14-year-old saying is like, if you're going to close your eyes and chuckle, but think nothing, so it's not taking you anywhere. So for some people, davening nates, it's really like a meditation. It's really like, this is my half an hour between me and God. But for other people, davening nates is, I cannot believe I woke up so early. It's going to take away from the rest of my day. I'm not even focusing on my prayer or on God. I'm focusing on the fact that I'm so tired. So then the nates is never, that tefillah, that prayer is not going to take you where you want to go anywhere, which is, I want to have a closer relationship with my creator, which is what tefillah, what prayer is supposed to be. So I just took you a very small example. But that is true about anything that we take on. That means something that we take on and we decide to do in any area of growth, but particularly in spiritual areas of growth, only work if it's going to take you where you need to go. So if you're on a ladder on step 1 and somebody's on step 10 and they're saying to you, to get from step 10 to step 11, you have to daven nates. And you're like, that's so cool, I'll try to do that. But you're on step 1. Davening nates won't even get you to step 2. It'll get you back to 0. That's how bad it is. That means taking somebody else's growth and pretending that that's your own, not only doesn't take you where you want to go, it actually takes away from where you are right now, which is why the first step to growth is awareness. I have to first place awareness on how I'm living my life. How am I speaking? How am I behaving? How am I performing my mitzvahs? How am I treating people around me? How? I don't know because I'm in a subconscious life. I live an unconscious life based on the habits that I've performed for the last 20, 30, 40 years, however old you are. So you don't know what you're doing. Like even standing in the shower, like how long do I stand in the shower for? So if you really place awareness, I remember standing outside the bathroom door when I was a teenager, screaming to my brother, "You've already spent 15 minutes in the shower!" Right now, if some people spend 15 minutes in the shower and other people spend 4 minutes in the shower, neither of them are aware that they spend that time in the shower. Unless you place awareness, you don't know. So let's say you are always frustrated that you're late. And then I say to you, how long does it take you to have a shower? And you're like, I don't know. I never time myself. I'm like, why don't you look at your watch before you go in the shower? And then you look at your watch after you go in the shower and see how many minutes it takes you. And then afterwards, they're like, wow, I spend 22 minutes in the shower. I'm like, okay, that's why you're late every morning. If you want to have a shower, you have to wake up half an hour earlier. Otherwise, you just can't have a shower because you're always half an hour late. So they're like, wow, that is so deep. That is actually brilliant. That's just amazing. It's not even deep or brilliant or amazing. It's just placing awareness. So once you are aware of how long it takes, right, then you know.
So gorgeous. Well, we still got 3 more points we have to get through. This is gorgeous. Okay, so you're saying commit to thinking every day. Are thoughts being key? That whole.
That's right. So that's what we're saying. We're saying that we're not committing to actually doing something. And this, by the way, is what dietitians always say. Let's say you go to a dietitian, and you say, I want to lose weight. They say, okay, before we start the diet, I want you to write me a diary of a whole week of what you eat. And so for a whole week, for the first time in your life, you write down, oh, I had nothing for breakfast. Then I had 2 pieces of cake for lunch. And then I didn't stop eating till like midnight. Wow, I do that? That's how I eat? That's crazy, right? And let's say you write it down every single day and you bring it to a dietitian and she's like, right. So the first thing we have to do is eat breakfast. And then we have to eat lunch and we have to prepare in advance. And what happens is that all the dietitian has done for you is helped you pay attention on your eating habits. That's all she's really done for you. And you've paid her a lot of money to do it, which is amazing for her, right? So, and really all she's done for you is she says to you, commit to thinking about the food you put in your mouth. You don't have to stop eating the cake. Just think, wow, I eat cake for lunch every single day. Wow, I have supper at 6 and then I have snacks at 9 and then I bring snacks to bed at midnight. Wow. And she's not even saying in that week, you should now change all your food habits. She's saying, just write down your food habits, just place awareness. Because before you can begin to change anything about yourself, you have to be aware of what you are doing. And that is the key. So, and to think about it. Wow, I didn't realize I speak like that. Wow, I didn't realize I behave that way. Wow, I didn't realize that I'm a very angry person. Or I'm a very impatient person. Or I'm a very whatever person. You suddenly create awareness. And I'm not even saying commit to now being a very loving, peaceful person. I'm saying count how many times you lose it in a day. And then place awareness on that. Wow, I get very angry, like quite a lot during the day. Is that because I'm tired? Is that because I'm hungry? Is that because I'm frustrated in my job? Is that because, and it could be nothing to do with your bad middos and much more to do with the technical setup of your day even. And that's also something that's key to that. Yeah.
I had a question about that because you had said that the key to change is questioning. Can you explain that for us? Because that's a very potent statement, and it's kind of like, to me, that what would cause someone to want to change is motivation.
Right. No, see, people talk about motivation. The best motivation is to know yourself. So let's say you think you are a very organized person, and yet you're always late for everything. And you're like, I don't understand. I think I'm a very organized person. So start questioning, what time of the day do I start running late? What causes that? And again, curiosity is so much better than criticism. In all of this situation, in any growth, curiosity is always much better than criticism about yourself and about really everyone, your children, your spouse. You can say to your husband, why do you always come home late from work? I don't understand. I know you finish work at 5:30. I know it only takes 20 minutes to come home. I'm so curious. Why do you only walk through the door at 6:30? And they might say to you anything. They might say, I at 5:30 at the end of the long day, I just sit at my desk for 10 minutes in the quiet because I just need to rest because I've just had such a long day at work. Or they could say to you, I've decided that on the way home, before I walk into the house, to drop in Starbucks and buy myself a coffee so I have more energy for the house. And then sometimes that takes longer than I think because I have to park and there's traffic around there and there's a long line. Or they could say anything. But if you just say you're always late and I can't bear you're always late, and there's only criticism, there's no curiosity, and therefore there's no room. And that is also true for ourselves. So if I notice, listen, I get angry a lot during the day, and I'm a terrible person, therefore. And therefore I've pronounced that I'm a terrible human being and that I shouldn't really be living with anyone, and that my husband should go find himself a nicer wife, my children should go find themselves a nicer mother, I'm just a terrible person. So in that whole conversation that I've just had with myself, with the critical voice in my head, there's not one space for me to even recognize and be curious. It could be that I lose it, and I see, when do I lose it during the day? Oh, because I ran out of bread and milk, so I couldn't feed my kids cereal for breakfast and I couldn't make their lunch for school, so I lost it. I'm very curious. Why does that happen? Oh, I go shopping on Sunday, but all that shopping only lasts till Wednesday. So Thursday and Friday, I don't have the things that I need. So maybe I should make also a shopping day on Wednesday for an hour where I rebuy all the essentials in the house, and then I won't have that tech. And then my curiosity has created its own solution. My questioning of my bad self and my curiosity has created already more room for solution, whereas my criticism created nothing. There was no space for me to grow.
Gorgeous. We have more questions coming in, but we've got...
No, we actually have somebody, Jocelyn on Facebook, who said, and again, just have to say how much I love Esti. She's so calming to listen to and makes things so clear and relatable. And she said also, I've been very, very short with everyone lately, especially my parents and my kids. I don't know why, it's just something I recognize, but can't really stop trying to work on it.
What did you say at the end? I didn't hear.
She's trying to work on it. Yeah, it's very good. And hopefully this will...
I always get nervous when people say they're trying to work on something, because that already sounds like it's too hard. And that always makes me nervous.
What would be instead? What would be instead?
I would say I'm curious to find out why am I burnt out? If I've spent the last few weeks just being really down with everybody, is it burnout? Have I just not had a holiday in 2 years, like nobody in the pandemic? Is that why? Trying to work on it is, whenever somebody says, I'm trying so hard to work on I'm trying so hard, I'm like, that is already, I don't like it. It's already.
Yeah, she said, yes, I'm burnt out. Exclamation marks. I'm burnt out.
I'm giving you a hug. Here's a hug.
What I'm saying is,
sending a lot of I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
Okay, stop trying so hard to work on it and try instead to book a holiday. And if you can't get away from your country, get away from your house. Book a hotel down the road from you. Lock yourself in a room for 48 hours and sleep. Meaning, when somebody is trying too hard and it's not working, I'm trying, there is a different answer, because the answer right now is not working. When you're trying too hard, you have to have a paradigm shift of what's really happening here.
Okay, you need to do the last 2 points before we end here.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So we say, so one of the key principles, obviously, to all growth, this is something so obvious, but I always feel I have to say it, is that we all possess great potential. And I think that we don't know that enough, and we don't say it enough, and we don't realize it enough. What does that mean? We are all hugely powerful. Our neshamas are hugely powerful. We as people, each person is so powerful. I can even prove it to you. If you would walk into the room really grumpy, you could affect the mood of the 5 people nearest to you. And if you walk into a room really joyous, you can also affect the mood of the 5 people nearest to you without opening your mouth. Meaning the vibes, we call it vibes nowadays, but it's really like an aura of your neshama that you give off everywhere you go. People feel it. People can feel it. Your neshama is glowing and hugely powerful, hugely. That means that we have so much potential, and therefore, with great power comes great responsibility, obviously. And therefore, my own biggest responsibility is to work on myself. If I have so much potential to have so much power, so much effect on everybody around me, even if I'm not a famous person, even if I'm not a TV personality, even if no one's going to know me except my small village of, 500 friends on Facebook or whatever it is, everybody's small village has expanded to like a whole country. But I'm just saying, even if in your small village, you should just know that we know in Judaism, Yiddishkeit, that actually every mitzvah that we do and everything that we do has ripple effects globally. That means even nobody who knows me, if I'm working on myself, if I do a mitzvah of chesed, it will ripple effect throughout the world. So we know that to be true. But you yourself have felt the effect of your neshama on other people in your own lifetime. It's not something I even have to convince you of the truth of, because you know it to be true. So therefore, we have to know that we are so great that we are absolutely 100% responsible for how the light of our neshama shines upon everybody. And therefore, our growth is not like a nice thing that we should do, but rather like an imperative. It's something that we have to do. Just like we have to do everything else, this is something that we have to do in our life. We have to take responsibility for our growth, and then we have to work on it because we have so much. Our neshama is hugely, hugely powerful and effective for everybody around us. Yes.
Do you have another word for potential? Since my sons, they hate that word. They're like, Ma, I know I have tons of potential. Like, that's your favorite word. Every time they do something, like, I'm like, you have a lot of potential, honey.
That's okay. So I think potential is a very American word. I never ever say that to my children ever. I say,
give me another word. Give me another word.
Okay, I don't say really that anybody has potential. I say that they have greatness. Potential sounds like you're almost there. Greatness sounds like you are already there. You have so much greatness. You are ready.
We have to just another 2 minutes. So do the last point that's very powerful with a lot of potential on the.
Okay, fine.
It's a lot of greatness.
Yeah, a lot of greatness. Oh yeah, a lot of greatness.
Okay. So part of growth is applying humanity to other people. What does that mean? We all have to find our balance. I call it my grace. I want to be graceful in my life. So we applied the word graceful to ballerinas, really, people who walk very gracefully or speak gracefully. But I think that there is a way that we can be graceful in our life. And that is in the way that we think about other people. A lot of times our greatness is stunted or stopped by what we think other people are thinking about what we're thinking about. So I think that my neighbor thinks that I am terrible. I think that my rabbi or my Rebbetzin or my mentor thinks that I don't care. I think another person thinks this about me, and we make up stories in our head that is not true about what other people think about us. You know what? I bet she thinks that I think, or I bet she thinks. I had a story like this with my neighbor once. So it was in Corona. And so all of us, nobody was going into each other's houses, and we were leaving things on doorsteps. So let's say I would put on my street's WhatsApp group, does anybody have any eggs I could borrow? They would leave it on their doorstep, and I would go get it from their doorstep and bring it into my house. And we did that. We have a great street of lots of Jewish from people, and that's what we did during the early days of coronavirus. And there was one family that actually had a very disabled child living in the house, and they were extra strict with everybody. And they kept being so apologetic. Listen, we've got a very vulnerable person in the house. Even when people started letting other people into their homes, they were very strict, and they weren't. And I totally understood that and accepted it. And I didn't even think about it. I thought, they're right. They have a very vulnerable person in the house. That's fine by me. I don't need to be in the house. I have my own house. Anyways, that neighbor came round to the house one random Shabbos afternoon, let's call him Mr. Cohen. His name is not Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen came around the house. I opened the door. He goes, I just came because I want to apologize. On the way home from shul, your husband saw us talking to somebody by their door. And I want you to know that it was my in-laws that we were talking to, and they're very lonely. I don't want you to feel that we, hang out with other people and we don't hang out with you. So I said to my neighbor, first of all, my husband doesn't think about what other people think about what we should be thinking. Second of all, my husband didn't even mention that he saw you speaking to anybody. Don't worry about it. This whole thing is just like, we don't think about anything about you. And if you want to speak to other people, that's also fine. And there's nothing going on here, meaning a lot of times we can get very caught up with how do other people feel about what they think I'm doing about X, Y, and Z matter, right? And I think it's in that moment that we lose our grace. And therefore, I want to say that part of the path to growth is working in our own mind, don lekafsachos for other people, and to stop obsessing.
Give them the benefit of the doubt, and give them the benefit
of the doubt, but also to stop obsessing about what other people might be thinking about us. Because all of that is so limiting, and it holds us back from the grace that we're trying to find in the growth of our life.
It's absolutely gorgeous. We are out of time, but I just have to tell you, this is like really, ladies, watch this show again. I'm telling you, you have to imbibe this whole thing. Once is enough, but I'm just saying, if this is something you could just imbibe and drink and have it come out your pores, your life will never be the same. Because if you have the secrets of how to grow yourself, there's no limit to your greatness, not your potential, your greatness.
Yeah. There are tons of hearts. Hearts are flying through Instagram. There's so awesome. Many viewers.
Okay, so now for those of you that want more of Rebbetzin Esti Hamilton, you can go on Instagram or you can go to Torah Anytime. She has a weekly class. There's 39 of them so far. You can catch up with everybody where she's teaching this in a much deeper way. This was gorgeous. I learned a lot. I'm sure all of us learned a lot. Thank you so much for being with us. And we hope that
that's why 117 on Instagram said she's great.
Yay! Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. This is Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show. I love this show. It was a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Good. Here's the thing, ladies. If you don't subscribe, you may miss out and you're going to miss some great content. So you need to either like us or follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, or go right to our website, www.ladiestalkshow.com, and fill in a subscription button. And then you'll get every week an update on exactly what's happening. And if you do that, oh, by the way, if you subscribe on our website, you also get 10 tips to have a great relationship. Don't miss it. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks a lot.